In this video I'm going to share with you 10 top tips to help you improve your critical thinking skills. Hello, my name is Dean Odell and I'm a magician and mind reader, and I upload a new video every Monday, so make sure to press that subscribe button for more great top tips, magic and mind reading. So our lives are essentially nothing but the product of our thoughts and decisions. Therefore, essentially, if we increase the quality of what we think, our lives can change for the better. And one of the ways to do this is to increase our critical thinking skills. So critical thinking is important because it is the ability to rationalise ideas, opinions and thoughts and make logical decisions. Critical thinking isn't about thinking more or thinking harder, it's about thinking better. The difference between thinking and critically thinking is that while we think every day, critically thinking is a deliberate mental exercise. It is the ability to analyse and think objectively about the world around us by using logic and other skills, and perhaps a bit of wisdom too. Honing your critical thinking skills can open up a lifetime of intellectual curiosity. But it does require a lot of discipline. Staying on track takes a combination of steady growth, motivation and the ability to take an honest look at yourself, even in the face of some uncomfortable facts. Now, every day we consume so much information, from listening to the radio news, scanning the morning paper, checking social media and our emails on our mobile phones. It's pretty overwhelming on its own, but things get really interesting when you realise that some of that information is biased, inaccurate or just plain made up, fake news. It makes it hard to know what to believe, but even with all the competing sources and opinions out there, getting the truth, or at least close to it, does matter. What you believe affects what you buy, what you do, who you vote for, and even how you feel. In other words, it virtually dictates how you live your life. So how can you sort the truth from the bullshit? So here's where critical thinking comes in, and I'm going to give you 10 top tips to help you with critical thinking. So don't take anything at face value. The first step to thinking critically is to learn to evaluate what you hear, what you read, and what you decide to do. So rather than doing something because it's what you've always done, or accepting what you've heard as the truth, spend some time just thinking. What's the problem? What are the possible solutions? What are the pros and cons of each? Of course, you still have to decide what to believe and what to do, but if you really evaluate these things, you're likely to make a better and more reasoned choice. Number 2, do not make assumptions. So in our day-to-day lives we make many assumptions about almost everything. Our brains are designed so as to make these assumptions for the purpose of processing data and information. Making assumptions is a critical part of the framework of our brains. But what if those assumptions turn out to be wrong, or at least not entirely truthful? Critical thinking requires that we don't make any assumptions. It also demands that any assumptions are deconstructed and examined for relevance and truthfulness. Assumptions are analysed by asking the why question. And by asking that why question, we increase our ability to think critically. Number 3, question everything and do your research. Critical thinking demands that we get to the bottom of this information to determine the nature of its validity. The more information you have, the better prepared you'll be to think things through. To think critically, we must be ready to question literally everything. Question everything and do your research. Critical thinking demands that we get to the bottom of the information to determine the nature of its validity. The more information you have, the better prepared you'll be to think things through. To think critically, we must be ready to question literally everything. During our daily activities, we are bombarded with information. It comes from both trustworthy and untrustworthy sources. We should question any news we get, including the statements made by figures of authority. Like assumptions, taking information on authority can be useful. Instead of double-checking everything anyone says, we tend to label information as either coming from a trustworthy or not trustworthy source. This keeps us from double-checking every piece of information that comes our way, saving time and energy. But it also keeps us from getting to the bottom of things we perceive as coming from a trustworthy source, even though they don't. Just because it was published in a magazine or broadcast over the TV doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Everyone has a motive, a bias, and sometimes it's pretty obvious, other times it's not. Just know that where any information comes from should affect how you evaluate it and whether you decide to act on it. Number 4, understand your own personal biases. Biases are the conclusions that we make about the world around us based on our own judgments. Our judgments can sometimes be very misguided, weak, or even spiteful. It can result in conclusions that are highly inaccurate about other people or things too. If a certain piece of information damages one's self-esteem or pricks their ego, then it can take it negatively. Therefore, to fully develop your critical thinking skills, you need to identify your own biases and examine them. This will result in narratives of higher quality. Understand what your biases are and where they may affect how you deal with information. Number 5, don't assume you're right. I know it's hard. I struggle with a hard-headed desire to be right as much as the next person. Because being right feels awesome. It's an ego trip almost everyone aims to take at some point or another. But assuming you're right will often put you on the wrong track when it comes to thinking critically. Because if you don't take in another perspective or point of view and think them over and compare them to your own, you really aren't doing much thinking at all, and certainly not the critical kind. Number 6, plan many steps ahead. Now I love to play chess, so you can think of life as a game of chess. So to succeed, you must plan many steps ahead of your opponent. Critical thinking involves this form of thought, and doing this helps you to anticipate possible challenges and to be prepared for them. Thus, your critical thinking skills improve. Number 7, identify your main purpose. Whenever we make a decision in life, there is a specific purpose attached to it. There are goals to the decisions that we make. This purpose is very useful as a guideline for one's thoughts and actions. Ensure that your purpose is clear. Put it in words and let it be your starting point. After that, think and make your decisions that align with your purpose. Number 8, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Now, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Our actions are the result of our decisions. It is possible to predict or even estimate possible results. One way of doing this is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Empathy can also help you develop your critical thinking skills. Whether it's improving your negotiation tactics or understanding literature better. Putting yourself in the shoes of others will help you imagine their motivations, aspirations, and turmoils. You can use this information to get leverage, be persuasive, or just be a plain better person. Empathy doesn't need to be heartless. Examine how they could feel or react in response to your decision. This helps you to be prepared for any outcome. You are able to create backup plans that cover any eventuality of your decisions. Number 9, look through the evidence of previous chains of thought. When thinking critically, you do not have to reinvent the wheel. Any problem that you're dealing with or trying to solve has most likely been solved by someone else before you arrived on the scene. So to get through it faster and more successfully, simply check to see the results of those who came before you. Use them as a guideline to your decisions, and this will indicate better critical thinking skills. Become a self-critic. One of the most important steps for developing critical thinking skills is to become a critic of your own thoughts and actions. Without self-reflection, there can't be growth. You can break down your own thoughts by asking yourself why you believe something. When you do this, you need to clarify your thoughts by assessing the information objectively and finding a solid logic to what you believe, rather than just a muddied idea. Why do I believe this? Can I think of examples in my life where this proved true or false? Am I attached to this idea emotionally? Just ask the why question. When we self-reflect, we are able to observe how we respond to a situation in our minds and out loud. Another aspect of developing a self-critic is acknowledging your strengths, weaknesses, personal preferences, and biases. When you know this information, you can understand why you approach certain situations from a specific perspective, and then you can step around that viewpoint because you're aware of its presence. The important takeaway. Critical thinking is so important in these times we find ourselves, surrounded by information and fake news. So the next time you have a problem to solve, a decision to make, or a claim to evaluate, you can decide whether it's likely to be true and if you should do anything about it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already, please do give this video a thumbs up, and for more great tips, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.